Rev up your engines! Alright, I got a big warning for you today. This is a 2014 Mazda CX-5. A lot of people are looking for small crossovers, but in the case of this 2014 Mazda, you might think twice before you buy one. This one was just purchased used for the guy's daughter. He paid 10 grand, Sky Active technology, but these early 2014 ones are notorious for having transmission problems. They only started selling them in the United States in 2013, so this is only the second year. And they have had transmission problems. The guy's daughter and his wife said they think the tranny feels a little bit weird, so we're gonna check it all out. But here's a gigantic warning. As the old saying goes, do not put the cart before the horse. I'm checking this car out for him now, but they've already bought it. Always have a mechanic like me check it out before you buy a used car. I don't care. It might be the greatest car in the world. Might be a Toyota Camry that looks beautiful. Maybe the owners never changed the oil and the engine's destroyed. Maybe it was in a flood. You gotta have a mechanic check it out before you buy. That's just the way that it goes. Now when it started up, you can hear it has one problem. It has an exhaust leak. Now that's obvious. We're just going to jack it up a little and see what that is. That's usually not all that big of a deal. Transmission's much bigger, but let's look under and see what's going on. In this case, this pipe has a hole here where it was welded on. The hole's right here. Not that big of a deal. You can see the gas is escaping here. They did a crappy job welding this, and it's eating through. It can be re-welded. Basically, it was a crappy weld. Obviously, it made the metal thin, and the metal went out, and it made some noise. It can be re-welded, kind of a design flaw in the first place, but that's no big deal. What we're worried about here is the transmission. They're pretty good cars. Some of them, strangely enough, had shattering windshields on the late model one. So if you're looking at one used, make sure the windshield isn't cracked, because if it's cracked, it's going to need replacing, and it's not as cheap as you might think. Because ones newer than this have all those collision control stuff. When you change the windshield, it's got to have all those sensors. They have to be correctly put on, and they have to be reprogrammed. I've seen people think, oh, we'll save money. We'll buy the Chinese windshield with the sensors on it. I've seen them not work. They're not. They have to be made perfect to work with that system. So you see one with a cracked windshield, you start talking a lot less money, or you move on to the next one. Some of these, for some weird reason, their windshields just shattered. The price of used vehicles is so high, you're probably better off buying a brand new one for two reasons. One, the price isn't that much difference, but two, the new ones are much better made than the older ones. I haven't seen problems in the later model ones. I haven't seen problems in the 2019, 20, 21, or 22s, right? So obviously they're better made. Since Toyota has a bigger stake in Mazda, they own a percentage of them. They seem to get a lot more Toyota technology, and they're building them better than they used to be. So if you're thinking about getting one, keep that in mind. The newer, the better. And by all means, stay away from 2014 and 2016 CX-5s. A lot of them had transmission problems as they age. Now, understand one thing as we'll look at this. Now, this baby does have 153,000 miles on it. And it was a one-owner car with all the records showing they never had anything done to the transmission. It's lasted this long. Being that this is an all-wheel drive, repairing all-wheel drive automatic transmissions are super expensive. Now, I'm going to go through it with my fancy scan tool for the whole car and the transmission. You're not going to have one of these, but after I'm done with the auto scan here, of course I'm going to take it for a road test, which you can easily do. And if you are looking at one of these and you take it for a road test, when you give it hard acceleration and then you grab your foot off the accelerator and do hard deceleration, if you get herky-jerky transmission issues, my advice is walk away. Don't even think about buying the car. You're going to feel it. In this case, the husband drove the car a couple times. He said he didn't feel anything, but both the daughter and the wife said they feel the tranny's a bit off. We'll see when we road test it, but I'm going to look at the data first. This is the transmission control module. It doesn't show any tranny problems yet. Now, that doesn't mean it's perfect, but it means that the parameters of the tranny haven't gone far enough to trip a code yet. You can feel higgledy-piggledy stuff before it'll trip a code, but there's no big ones, which is at least one good sign. Now, the 22 systems, there's 3 codes. Now, we'll do the ones that we really probably aren't going to care all that much about. The ABS. The trouble codes are: receive not valid data from restraints control module. The position of the steering wheel had a code. There's a clock spring that makes the position for the anti-lock brake system. And to tell you the truth, most cars have 153,000 miles on them. With this kind of mileage, they often don't work all that well. But someone might have worked on it at some point in time, done something, so we'll clear the codes. They could just be random codes that don't mean anything. And there's another system that has one code in it. We'll check that out. Smart Start System. I don't know how smart it is. It's saying the passive anti-theft transmitter isn't working right. These things to me, I'm very leery about them. Very leery. As they age, they often don't work right. So we'll go back. We'll clear that one too. Now, as I said, this guy put the cart before the horse. I'm checking it out after he already bought it. What should be done is check it out first. So we're going to go to the main PCM data, and we're going to look at the live data. So we'll start it up. Let it warm up. As you can see here, we have 124 points of data we can mess with. Remember, it's color coded. If the color's off of black, there's a problem. But there's still a lot of data that might not trip a code, but still shows somewhat of a problem. Voltage is fine. Now realize one thing. These new systems, these Mazdas have extremely complex systems, but they can get a lot of power and good gas mileage. Some people whine that, oh, my Mazda burns oil. From my experience with these models, it's because they don't change the oil enough. You buy one of these, use the full synthetic GF6 oil and change it every 5,000 miles. You probably won't have any engine problems at all. Now, the older Mazdas had problems because in the past, Mazda had a big relationship with Ford instead of with Toyota, and their engines, actuating machines would break because they were motorcraft Ford parts. They weren't made all that well. But those days are gone. They don't have such a relationship with Ford anymore, and they're building better vehicles than they were back then. The old ones, a lot of them burn oil, and there's nothing you can do about it. These, they generally only burn oil if somebody hasn't changed it enough. See the equivalent ratio here? I mean, hey, the desired is 1.016 and it's 1.014, 10, 17, 15. That's pretty close to perfect on a car that's got 150-something thousand miles on it. Like I say, the engines are pretty well made on these things. The trim of the long-term fuel, bank 1, sensor 1, this engine's 4-cylinder, it only has one bank, is 0. That means it's not running rich or lean. This is even beyond Toyota. Normally a Toyota 150 is going to have a little fuel trim plus or minus, maybe 1%, 2%. This is 0. It's running perfect. So the engine, the fuel injection system are in immaculate shape. Check it out, the short-term fuel trim. It's almost 0 too. It's 0 and every once in a while it goes like less than 1%. I mean, it's a pretty well-made vehicle. The intake camshaft is in good shape because the actual position and the desired position are pretty close. They almost exactly mirror each other. So there's very little wear there. We're going to road test this baby, and since we're going to road test it, we're going to record the transmission control module. We're going to look at the live data. We're going to record it and take it for a road test. So here we go. It's pretty high up in the air, so we don't have to worry about dragging. We won't slow down much over the bump, and it bumps around, but hey, it goes over perfectly fine. And all in all, it's relatively quiet other than the little exhaust lead you can see that needs stuff welded back on. So we'll get to the main road here and take it for a little transmission spin in automatic and see what it does. Nobody's coming that way. Nobody's coming that way. Here we go. Let's see what happens. That was a pretty crisp shift. So far, they're totally normal. I don't feel anything odd. The traffic, so I'll speed up again. And downshift's pretty good. Upshift's pretty good. I'll take my foot off the gas. No weird boggle downshifting. I can feel a tiny bit there, but that's pretty normal for these things with 153,000 miles. Gas again, see what happens. I didn't feel any glitches. They drive it all the time. And if you drive these things for an hour or 2 or 3 and the tranny gets a little warmer, you might get a little bit of a glitch from the age. But this thing really, it doesn't feel bad at all so far. Gotta wait for the clearance to get back on the road again. Well, what the heck, it's gonna warm up more while we're waiting. There's a clearance here and a red light the other way, so here we go again, taking off. Again, totally normal shifting, nothing outrageous. Now this has a manual override, so if you want, you can shift it manually. You can see it went very smooth up. We're gonna go down. It went really smooth down. These are always generally much smoother when you shift them by hand. We take the corner and away we go. Like I said, you want to shift it manually, go right ahead. Shifts really smooth. It's actually much smoother manually. Of course, you have more control. Normally when I'm going down this hill to my house, I got to put my foot on the brake in the Matrix, but this, I can just put it in the lower gear manually. I take my foot off the gas and it actually decelerates instead of going up to 25, 30. Realize the speed limit here is 20. You do actually have a lot more control if you're shifting it manually. Realize that. And if you want a little more zip, you're going to elect the manual option. I mean, this thing's got 150,000 miles and this manual option still works perfectly fine. I'm going to look at the diagnosis data report. Since it's color coded, first we'll just zip through the 1,357 frames. Everything's blue. Now we'll play the data and we'll watch some of them. See how they change as it shifts. Commanded current of the pressure controlled solenoid is the same as the measured current, so that's all good. And that when it's shifting into shift solenoid 3, that's 1 and 1 when it was shifting. So all in all, in this road test, it showed perfect data. It didn't act up for me either. I believe that it probably does at some point in time get a little bit funky, but realize, unlike many other cars, this is not a CVT transmission. They use a 6-speed automatic in these. So we've learned one important thing, that even though some of the 2014 CX-5s had automatic transmission problems, and most people who know cars will say don't buy one, it could have a transmission problem, this particular one doesn't really have any serious one yet. If a guy like me check it out before. He did it after. He got lucky, right? He got lucky. He could have got one of the horrible 2014s. Maybe this was a later model one when they made them better, you know? Who knows? You got to get it checked out by a mechanic. And you saw the data on that machine, thousands of bits of data. You can't hide that. It can't be hidden. It can be analyzed correctly. And especially with this model, since it's got the manual shift, you can shift it manually. Shift it manually. And if that stops, just drive it that way if it bothers you. You flip it up and down. It's not that big of a deal, you know? It's more fun, and I've had customers drive them years that way, that the automatic stuff starts acting up, but the manual still shifts good, and they just drive them that way. Because, I gotta say, for 150-something thousand miles, this thing is still in pretty good shape. But take my advice, don't gamble like he did. Have a mechanic check it out before you buy it, not after you buy it. I've seen too many people get burned on a car that looked okay, sometimes even ran okay, but had serious engines or transmission problems that were going to cost $5,000, $10,000 to fix. You don't want to be in that situation. Or if the prices are too high, buy a new one. These new ones seem to be really good. The Mazdas are better than they used to be. They had horrible automatic transmissions decades ago. 80s, 90s, I told people, do not buy an automatic transmission Mazda. The standards are okay, but do not buy an automatic. But today, no, I like driving them better than the CVTs. Just, CVTs are a little bit wonky. They feel a little bit weird to me. I like the actual shifts. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.